Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Aftermath series. We had quite an interesting episode tonight, rather emotional, but also rather cheerful and joyful in certain aspects. We definitely got a lot of new information and a lot of interesting things happened. The page that I write on, that I write all my notes on, I filled two sides. Now, a lot of the stuff that I wrote down and want to talk about, a lot of it is just small things, but there are some topics that are a bit broader. So a few of the things that I want to talk about will probably go by really fast, so I apologize if some things feel rather rushed. There are a lot of small things that happened that I just want to touch on quickly, but then there are a few things that happened that I may want to expand on a bit more. So without wasting any more time, let's get right into it. So the first thing, Travis and Laura being back. That was awesome. I kind of thought that they would be back. It kind of made sense. Considering their characters are back. I knew Ashley wasn't going to be back just due to the fact that she has her work that she has to do. So I wasn't too surprised that Ashley wasn't back, but I was pleasantly surprised that Travis and Laura were back. I weren't expecting them to be back this soon, but it's welcome nonetheless. You know, it's funny, I didn't realize how much I actually missed them until I saw them back on the screen and they were getting back into their characters and having some laughs with their friends. It made my heart happy, and I'm sure most of you feel the same way. So now a few things that I would like to talk about. I guess we'll go in chronological order from my list and through the episode. So at the very beginning, once they gathered Ford and Jester and Yasha, it seemed like Yasha got the worst of it, or maybe they were just working on her first. I'm not entirely sure, but it definitely seemed like she visibly got the biggest beating. And I'm curious if that's because possibly she kept stepping out of line, or she was causing more trouble than Ford and Jester, and so they decided to do her first, or maybe give her the worst of their torture. Maybe she was defending Ford and Jester in a way, and she was trying to, pull all the attention to herself to keep the pain away from Ford and Jester. I'm not entirely sure, but it's obviously very clear that she got the worst of it. We didn't get too much information. Ford and Jester didn't really share too much about their experience with it. Ford sort of touched on it a little bit, but I feel like we didn't really get a full idea on what was actually done to either of them. So it'll be interesting to see if that comes out a little bit. It felt like at the end, I know I was going to go in chronological order, but I'll just do this quick jump. I know at the end, Caleb was trying to get more information from Ford about what happened and stuff, but it seems like Ford was rather guarded, and he's not quite ready to share it yet. So it'll be interesting to see if it comes up again. A couple quick things around this same time. They had buried Molly in the Glory Run Road, and I think it was Marisha who said, how appropriate. And I don't know, that moment just kind of made me smile. It's like, yeah, Molly brought so much joy, to the group, and it's only appropriate that he was buried on the Glory Run Road. Long may he reign in his glorious glory. But it's it's very clear that this whole situation, the party being kidnapped, Molly's death, the reunion, it's really brought them all together. And Bo even said that, Molly laid down his life for you. Ford was saying how this was a favor, but, Bo was like, no, it's not, sort of alluding to the fact that, they're coming together, maybe not as a family quite yet, but just as a really, strong group of friends. Bo even said that she would lay down her life for them. And from what we know of Bo, she's kind of a selfish person. She really looks out for herself, and she hasn't really expressed, worry for other people as much as her companions may have. So it's just interesting that she said something like this, and it's a nice character development piece for Bo, that she was able to realize that maybe it's okay to rely on people. Maybe it's okay to make connections. So I thought that was a really nice thing that Bo got to experience. While they were still down in the cellar, they're sort of asking Ford, maybe not really asking him, but they're sort of just having general conversation about the torturing that took place, and not wanting to make an insight check against Ford to see if he was still on their side or whatever. At the end of it all, it was probably just a joke that Matt did the whisper, but when Matt first asked for it, Matt looked like really excited I don't know if he was just like playing along with the joke. It's like 99% possible that that was the case. But it's just something to get you thinking that maybe they did break him, and he is different. But I don't think maybe in like in a malicious manner. I don't think he's out to get the group now. But it was just a little something to think about. And Matt only whispered into Sam's ear for like 2 seconds tops. So I don't think much was said about it. But it's just something interesting to think about. Just a lot of heartwarming and genuine moments during this reunion, especially when Caleb gave back Jester's pink haversack. Jester had mentioned that it looked really good on Caleb, but then Caleb was like, well, it looks better on you. I just thought that was a really sweet moment. So many sweet moments during this reunion, as I said before, but that one really stuck out to me just because I love Jester and Caleb's little relationship they have going. I thought it was super adorable. And then once they were all back upstairs, they did their searching around. They gathered the satchel from Lorenzo's room, dumped all the stuff. They're sort of resting for the evening. Caleb with his just terrible gash that was partially healed thanks to Jester, sitting there identifying everything. And then I just had the visual of Bo. I see this type of fan fiction a lot, but Bo, may mention that she was super beat up and she was going to take a rest. And there's so many like fan fiction or fan art rather of Caleb resting on Bo resting on Caleb, and so I just had that visual again in this episode while Caleb is sort of identifying all of their items, and then Bo sort of just stumbles over and sort of leans against Caleb or lays on his leg or something, while he's just sort of not even paying attention to that, but just looking over all the items. It was just a cute little visual that sort of came to my mind as the episode progressed. I thought it was really cute. But another interesting thing is so much character development is having, and that's a theme that's sort of going to be discussed a lot in this Aftermath episode. Specifically with Caleb, after he'd finished identifying everything, normally when he would identify stuff, he would sort of hold on to it a little bit. He'd be a bit apprehensive when giving it out, but this time he's like, no, here's this, here's this. And I don't know if it's because his friends, were rather annoyed with it, but I typically think that his friends may be annoyed with it, but ultimately they'd be okay for the sake of role-playing. But it was interesting that he was just so open about just sharing all this stuff, and he really didn't even care about it. Obviously it didn't seem like much of it pertained to him, but he was just very like, no, this would be good for you, this is good for you, this is very powerful, you should have it. It was just a nice change from previous scenarios where he had to identify things and then give them back to the group. So it was a nice little change in personality, I suppose, for Caleb. But sort of branching off of that real quick, it seems like he's sort of changed in a way. Now, obviously, he's very passionate about gaining new knowledge and learning new spells, and it was just so adorable to see him super excited to share like his new skills with his friends. His new tiny hut spell Twitch chat was spamming, I suppose that's what it's called. I'm not too versed in wizard spells or spells in general, for that matter. But it was just so cute to see him so excited to share this new ability that he had with his friends. Now let's talk a little bit about that curious letter that was found. I believe it was found in the satchel that was from the Menagerie Coast with that galley coin on it. So obviously the crystal was familiar to Ford. It was the one that he sort of absorbed. And I believe that Ford knows a bit more about the people in that letter than he's letting on. Specifically, back when Ford came into possession with this gem, he had a vision of his former captain, I believe it was. He was looking through the eyes of his captain, and he had that same gem. So I think he may know of the people in that letter. I believe specifically the captain was mentioned in that, and it's possibly that person. But I do think Ford knows a little bit more than he's letting on in regards to the people in that letter and what that whole situation is about. And another interesting thing is Laura twice, and technically Jester as well, smelled the letter on 2 different occasions, and both times she says it smells like home. Now at first listen, that seems rather innocent, But then on the second time she said it, she sort of looked at Matt, and Matt sort of looked at her, and they had a little bit of a moment, and she sort of did like a, I can't remember if she did like a nod, but there was like an acknowledgement there. So I think there may be something going on, maybe with her mother, Jester's mother. And to sort of connect that, there was a reddish-hued gem in the satchel as well that could summon, I think he said something like a fire elemental thing, but it immediately sort of made me thinking about the Ruby of the Sea, which is also Jester's mother. So couple interesting things that might be going on, but only time will tell. So we'll see how that progresses, and if there is any connections there. And you know, back on that, what I talked about previously about all the touching moments with the reunion, Ford and Bo were right back at it again with, you know, the joking around. Like when Bo was gonna go with Keg, she was saying how she was only gonna be gone for like an hour and a half, and Ford immediately was like, make it 2 hours or something like that. But you know, they're just back to their good old, you know, buddy, you know, just joshing around with each other. Just another awesome moment that I really didn't know how much I missed until now, and I'm glad we got to see it again. But then obviously a few sad things about it. You know, when Jester, it was that night when everyone was going down to sleep, Jester sort of went off with her book and was trying to, you know, commune with the traveler and just didn't know what to say. And yeah, she, you know, she just wrote down, "Why didn't you come?" And that was just like a really heartbreaking moment. And I wish there was maybe some kind of a sign that the traveler was trying to help. Because back in one of the previous episodes, I made mention about that, the tavern keep at the brothel. It was a couple episodes, I can't quite remember. But we just discussed about how that may have been the traveler sort of helping guide the Mighty Nine towards Jester. But we'll have to see how her relationship with the traveler progresses after what had happened. It'll be interesting to see. And then in the morning, when everyone was sort of doing their things, you know, they noticed the door was open. Keg was obviously gone. Caleb went to investigate and sort of watch the tracks, the snowfall, and just another touching but sad moment again with Caleb. How he took out his lucky stone and was sort of just looking at the snow and sort of thinking back to the old days when he was a child and playing in the snow. I thought that was just a really sad moment, but also kind of touching. You know, thinking back, he was thinking back on good times, which maybe be how he was thinking of those things because that's how he was feeling now, you know, being back with his friends. It reminded him of the good times he used to have when he was young. So another just really sweet moment, sweet but sad moment that Caleb experienced this episode. Oh man, and Keg's letter to Nat and Bo. I don't think much needs to be said about those other than I absolutely adore Ashley Birch, and I am going to miss her dearly, and I hope we see her again in the future. She was an absolutely wonderful addition to the cast, and we are going to miss her dearly. But then, sort of rewinding, as one of my notes sort of goes back to the earlier conversations about how Ford was talking about how, you know, you guys didn't have to do this. You know, you came back, you know, I owe you a favor. And they're like, no, like, it's okay. Like, it wasn't a favor, you know. We're here for you guys, you know, we're a team now. And they made mention, it was brought up again that they were on a job, you know, they were contracted by the gentleman to get this job done. And Jester was like, oh, so you were kind of saving us, but it was also about the money. But then Caleb was like, no, it wasn't about the money, which is super, super interesting because rewinding several episodes back, I believe episode 12, I could be wrong, back when they were doing the heist into the woman is failing me, but Ulog, I think his name was Ulog, the one who killed himself to kill that the High Richter, I believe it was. Yes, the High Richter. Caleb had that moment where he stole the scroll, and Ford and Caleb had that face-off. Caleb said, you know, this isn't worth my time. I'm taking this, thinking that, you know, everything that they were doing was important, but it wasn't worth his time. But now, you know, fast forward to now, you know, saying it wasn't about the money. You know, none of that. He does not care about that anymore. He cared about rescuing his friends, and that was what was important to him. So I think it was another interesting character development for Caleb this episode. So now touching on our new Furball party member, I'm getting a lot of, I don't know if any of you are fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I'm getting some Uncle Iroh vibes, especially with his whole thing with tea. I don't know how you guys feel, but even the voice, it's sort of, I'm just getting a lot of Uncle Iroh vibes. We don't know much about his philosophy in life at all, but from what he's sort of led on, I definitely can see a lot of Uncle Iroh in him. And I so love that because Uncle Iroh is one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. So hopefully we'll see a few more connections with that as well in the future. And now moving forward with the episode, they were able to get back to Ophelia. They did remember that contract that they had with her. And Matt did flat out say that she was a tiefling, so she's not a dragon. Although, I guess she's not a dragon. But there was still more mention about her fangs, so I still think vampires on the table, almost 100%, so we'll have to see how that progresses. And it's very interesting how she seems so fixated on Caleb. I don't know if they have some kind of a thing going on, but she had that moment where she studied him greatly once again, as she did in the previous episode. So another just interesting moment between her and Caleb. And of course, another touching moment. Nott and Jester are back to their shenanigans again, their detective work, and then back when, the party was having their meeting with Ophelia, and Nott and Jester were back on the cart, and they had that mooning situation. They're just back to their good old pranks and stuff. So it was just another nice moment to see, with the reunion, us missing Laura and Travis. It was just a nice moment to have once again. As they then exited the Marduna State, I suppose, making their way along through Shady Creek Run, they had that moment where they saw the Cricks in the alleyway making some sort of a deal. Now, obviously, this is not within the Empire Shady Creek Run, so I guess it's not too crazy to see that there are Cricks or people from Xhorhas among the sort of rough crowd that dwells in Shady Creek Run. It's sort of interesting to think about what they might be doing here. They could be just trying to exchange information, try to hire more mercenaries, although I feel like the standards of Shady Creek Run is way too low for the people from Xhorhas, but I could be wrong. So I want to know what you guys think about that, since I'm not quite sure what the Cricks could have been doing there. And then another interesting little thing about Bo and Caleb, as they were, journeying down the road in this sort of caravan, Caleb and Bo had a rather interesting conversation about Bo's past. And I really do love Bo and Caleb's relationship. They're they are friends, and they had that moment at the end where they, were saying, you're a good friend, just because they're so real with each other. And I feel like they have a different sort of dynamic than they have with the rest of the group. Even with Caleb and Nott, because I feel like Caleb and Nott are really close, but I feel like they haven't had these sort of in-depth conversation as Bo and Caleb have shared. So going into the conversation that they had, it was sort of just Bo rehashing information that she already told, but Caleb seemed to be a bit put off by it in a way, I suppose. It could be because he himself was once a part of an establishment, and that establishment completely ruined his life, and maybe he saw sort of what Bo was saying, maybe it sort of echoed with him. So maybe he was just reminded of what he went through when Bo was telling her story, and maybe it doesn't quite sit well, and he may feel like she's being played, or maybe now he doesn't trust her completely. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses and if it comes up again in the future. And now, sorry, I'm getting a little choked up already. We will sort of touch on the sad moments that happened in the episode. Their carriage was making their way down the road, and they came across the gravesite of their fallen ally, Molly Mock Tea Leaf, where they sort of had their final goodbyes. And this moment sort of really showed how much the group has come together with everything that's happened. They sort of have come together as this team. I wouldn't really call them a family quite yet, but this motley group of people that they didn't know each other months ago, but this lavender tiefling, colorful in both appearance and personality, brought them together in the beginning of their journey. He was the one that broke the awkward tension when they're sitting at the tables and sort of brought them together. They were sort of just remembering him in this beautiful moment, sad moment, and even more devastatingly sad when Yasha woke up and sort of realized what happened and walked over to the grave, and Jester and Bo trying to comfort her as she's just, the rage just bubbling inside her. Is, I can't imagine how she feels. You know, she's completely powerless. She couldn't save, she couldn't be there for Molly. When it seemed like their relationship, it seemed like Molly sort of helped her, you know, whatever demons she's hiding in, whatever things she's going through, it seemed like Molly sort of pulled her back from whatever dark corner, whatever dark place she put herself into. It seemed like Molly sort of pulled her back and saved her in a way. And Yasha couldn't be there to save Molly, and sort of all the rage just was unleashed, and she let it out in this roar, and her wings were unfurled. Just a really powerful and terribly sad moment. I was in tears, for sure. I'm sure some of you felt the same way. But it's just such a powerful moment, and I am anxious to see what happens next with Yasha. But it was also a very touching moment seeing Taliesin as Clay sort of putting our friend to rest, his previous character to rest, with his gentle repose, I believe is the cantrip he cast. I'm not sure much about it. There's just another touching moment, how he was turning Mollymauk tea leaf into tea leaves, I suppose. Just a nice touching moment. But as they were all sort of sharing their favorite memories with Molly, I want to know what you guys think. You know, what are your favorite Molly moments? Feel free to share down below. I'd love to read them, and I'm sure there'll be tears as I read through the comments. But now that part of the episode is over, let's continue on. Now, fast forwarding their entire travel back to Zadash, I felt like a wave of like nostalgia and just like, I guess, sort of comfort when they reached the gates of Zadash. I don't know if you guys felt the same, but I was like, we're finally back to, you know, home turf, I suppose, in a way. Familiar territory. It was just nice to be back. It just felt relief wash over me as they sort of breached the gates and sort of entered the city and made their way back into the evening nip and into the gentleman's quarters. And whoa, I was not expecting Ophelia and Gentleman to have that sort of relationship, but I guess it sort of makes sense. I was, again, pleasantly surprised at what transpired down in the bar. And then a few interesting moments with them. Obviously, with them meaning the gentleman in the group, not the gentleman and Ophelia. When they were sort of trying to ask questions about, they were asking questions towards the gentleman about the letter that they found in regards to that crystal that Ford absorbed and the captain, and then those two names that were sort of thrown around. Ford tried to ask the gentleman about it, but then he did have that moment that Not and Jester brought up later, that he sort of looked at Ophelia, so it's probably possible that he knows a bit more than he's letting on. Obviously, he's not gonna, you know, throw around his connections that he has willy-nilly. He's gonna keep them close to his chest, so I'm sure he knows a bit more than he's letting on, and I'm sure Ford knows a bit more than he's letting on, but we'll have to see as the story progresses. And now, fast forwarding a little bit after they've all have been drinking and sort of having conversation, a funny little moment how they were like, when they were talking, Ford went off to talk to Kara, and then as he walked away, Kara was like, you know, I'm glad you're well, or something like that, and Ford was just like, thanks, like he didn't know what to do. And then he comes back and he's like, I can't take compliments well. I just thought it was really funny, because he really can't. I think the last time he really received compliments was back in Hupperduke, when he was sort of flirting with the barmaid, and she was sort of putting it on really thick, and he just had no idea what to do. So this really funny moment, considering how charismatic Ford actually is. he doesn't know how to handle when he's receiving genuine compliments. So I thought that was kind of a funny moment. And then another interesting moment, it seems like Caleb changes a little bit when he is rather inebriated after he's had a few drinks. He seems a bit more extroverted and willing to talk. He was talking about Ford, because Ford was mentioning how he felt responsible. He felt at fault and guilty for what had happened. But, Caleb looked at him. I even wrote down because I didn't want to forget. He said, you can't blame yourself when you're being taken advantage of. Caleb said that to Ford, which is really interesting since the same exact thing is happening to him. He's blaming himself for what happened to his parents when it was Trent Ickathon that was sort of controlling him and taking advantage of his raw talent. It's a really interesting thing. I think Marisha sort of caught on to what he was saying, but she didn't want to bring anything up. But I thought that was a really interesting thing for Caleb to say. And maybe it's a step in the right direction where Caleb is finally accepting what happened and is trying to move forward with his life and with what happened, and he's on the path to recovery, hopefully. And then another interesting thing that Ford brought up, this is back when they were talking about the conditions they were in, the torturing and stuff. Ford mentioned how Jester was trying to maintain a happy demeanor. She was trying to cheer people up, which is interesting that she took it upon herself to try to keep morale high. And I thought it was a really, really touching thing that she was trying to do. And it's interesting that Caleb then immediately tried to call BS on it and was saying how it's probably an act. And honestly, I think I agree. I think it probably is, but I don't think it matters if it is an act or not. She knew that she had to be strong in that moment, and she knew that she had to be that sort of anchor, that sort of beacon of light that they all needed. So I don't really mind if it's an act or not. She just knew what she had to do. And again, another sweet moment with Bo and Caleb, as I already sort of mentioned a little bit before. Bo was saying how, Caleb, you're a really good friend. And Caleb immediately said, you're a good friend too. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe not the first time, but the second or third time possibly that Caleb really referred to them as friends. So just so much character development with Caleb and the rest of the Mighty Nine in this episode that, they're really all coming together with all that's happened. But that's about it for the episode. A bit of a lengthier episode, but a lot happened in the episode, and there was a lot that I wanted to talk about. Again, I apologize if some of it didn't make sense. But let me know what you guys think below. What are some of your favorite moments in that episode? What are some things you want to know or are curious about as the story progresses? Anything that I may have missed that you would like to talk about, please discuss below. And what do you think the Mighty Nine is going to do next? As Matt said, that they do have about a week or two of downtime. So what do you guys think they're going to do? And a few things before I finish off the episode. There was an issue with my previous highlight video, the live crowd reactions. It was taken down due to some complications, but it is up again. I don't know if there was no notification for when the video was released, but if you did not know, the highlight video is released. So you can go and check that out. And then the other thing, if you guys aren't already subscribed to CriticalGeminiHero, I suggest you do so. She makes incredible highlight videos, and she just recently released a new episode for, I believe, 14 it was. And it's absolutely amazing, hilarious, wonderful work again. I really appreciate all of the work she does. You can really tell she puts so much effort into her videos. And it'd be awesome if you guys haven't already, just go check her out and see what you guys think. But I believe that is it. I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting. Always after I finish these episodes, I'm like, oh, I probably should have mentioned that. So I'm pretty sure I'll have more of those. But for right now, I'm fairly satisfied with the episode. I hope you all enjoyed the episode as much as I did, and I will see you guys next week. Have a good night, everyone.